Ladies, those men who are married to their mom or family will never be yours. Let's talk about it. There is a difference between a man loving his mother and a man being controlled by his mother. There is also a difference between honoring your parents and allowing your parents to run your adult relationships. And there's a big difference between being a good son and being a man who never emotionally left home. Many women spend years building a future with a man who is already married, not legally, but emotionally. His mother is the first woman in his life, the first voice he listens to, the first opinion he values, the first person he protects, the first person he considers. If he hasn't learned how to separate healthy love from unhealthy attachment, you will always be competing for a position that was never available. This is not a video about disrespecting mothers. Good mothers deserve honor, appreciation, and gratitude. This video is about men who allow their mothers to interfere, control, manipulate, and dictate every aspect of their adult lives. You will never win, because you are trying to build a partnership with a man who still needs permission to be a man. Let's dig in. 1. He doesn't see you as his priority. One of the biggest mistakes women make is believing time will change this situation. They think, when we get engaged, things will change. When we move in together, things will change. When we get married, things will change. When we have children, things will change. No, it won't. Marriage doesn't fix priorities. Marriage reveals them. If a man consistently places his mother's wants above your needs while dating, he will likely continue doing it after marriage. If he allows her opinions to override yours now, he'll likely continue doing it later. Priorities don't magically rearrange themselves. Healthy men understand that the primary relationship shifts because they are starting a family of their own. The problem is, some men never make that shift. Emotionally, they stay attached to their mother's approval. Every major decision must pass through her first. Where you live, how you spend money, how you raise children, how holidays are spent, what house you buy, how often you visit, even how your relationship functions. Before long, you realize you're not in a relationship with one person, you're in a relationship with two. You can't compete with a lifetime bond. Let's be honest, you should never have to compete with someone's mother. But many women find themselves in this position. It is exhausting because you're competing with decades of influence, conditioning, emotional dependence, guilt, and obligation. You are fighting habits formed since childhood. And if he hasn't done the emotional work required to separate adulthood from childhood, you will spend years trying to prove your worth to someone who was never evaluating you fairly to begin with. 3. His mother's opinion becomes the final decision. Pay attention to this. Does he consult his mother, or does he obey his mother? Those are two different things. Emotional, independent adults seek advice. Emotional, attached adults seek permission. One says, "Mom, what do you think?" The other says, "Mom, tell me what to do." And there is a huge difference. If every disagreement ends with, "My mother thinks," "My mother said," "My mother doesn't like that," "My mother doesn't approve," then you are no longer dealing with a partner. You are dealing with someone who outsourced his decision-making, because eventually her opinion becomes the final vote, and yours becomes optional. That's not partnership. That's hierarchy, and you're not at the top of it. He will never fully defend you. One of the clearest signs of a problem is when a man refuses to defend you. His mother criticizes you, he stays silent. His mother disrespects you, he stays silent. His mother crosses boundaries, he stays silent. His mother insults you, he stays silent. Why? Because he's terrified of upsetting her. He would rather disappoint you than confront her. And that's a dangerous position to be in. Because relationships require protection, not physical protection alone. Emotional protection, mental protection, relational protection. A healthy man doesn't allow anyone, including family, to mistreat the woman he claims to love. But a man who puts his mother first often avoids conflict with her at your expense. And eventually, you become the sacrifice that keeps everyone else comfortable. Guilt controls his life. Many of these men are not operating from love, they're operating from guilt. Guilt is powerful, especially when it was planted early. Some mothers use guilt intentionally. Others use it without realizing it. Statements like, "After everything I've done for you, I guess you don't need me anymore," You're choosing her over your family. You've changed. You never spend time with me. You don't care about me anymore. These statements are designed to create emotional pressure. And if a man hasn't developed emotional independence, he caves every time because he feels responsible for her feelings. And here's the problem. When someone is controlled by guilt, they become impossible to build with. Because guilt will always override logic. You become the villain. At some point, something strange happens. You become the problem, not because you did anything wrong, but because your presence requires him to grow. Your presence requires boundaries. Your presence requires independence. Your presence requires adulthood. And anyone who benefits from his lack of boundaries may begin viewing you as the threat. Suddenly you're labeled controlling, difficult, disrespectful, manipulative, selfish, not because you are, but because you're asking for something they don't want him to give, a life separate from their control. And many women spend years trying to convince people they aren't the villain. Stop doing that. People committed to misunderstanding you will always find a reason. He is still a son before he is a man. Now listen carefully. Being a son is beautiful, but eventually a man must become more than a son. He must become a leader, a husband, a father, a protector, a builder, an independent adult, and some men never make that transition. Their entire identity remains wrapped around pleasing their mother. Every decision, every action, every relationship, every goal, everything revolves around avoiding her disappointment. And that's not maturity, that's dependency. A grown man's first responsibility should not be managing his mother's emotions. What happens after marriage? Here's where things get worse. Many women think marriage will fix this. It often amplifies it, because now there are bigger decisions: children, money, holidays, discipline, schools, living arrangements, family traditions. And suddenly his mother is involved in everything. Every decision becomes a committee meeting. Every disagreement gains another participant. Every conflict gets reported back to her. Nothing stays between husband and wife. Nothing remains private. Nothing remains sacred. And before long, the marriage starts suffocating. Not because of two people, because of three. You start losing yourself. One of the saddest things that happens in these relationships is this. You slowly stop being yourself. You become careful. You become quiet. You become accommodating. You become exhausted. You stop expressing concerns because nothing changes. You stop speaking up because you're tired of being dismissed. You stop fighting because you're tired of losing. And little by little, you disappear. Not overnight, gradually. Until one day you realize you've spent years shrinking yourself to fit into a situation that was never designed to respect your position. The truth, most women don't want to hear. You cannot fix this. You cannot love him enough. You cannot sacrifice enough. You cannot explain enough. You cannot wait long enough. You cannot perform enough. He has to recognize the problem himself. He has to decide he wants healthy boundaries. He has to choose adulthood. He has to choose independence. He has to choose growth. And if he doesn't, nothing changes, because you cannot heal a problem someone refuses to acknowledge. What a healthy man looks like. Let's be clear. A healthy man loves his mother, respects his mother, honors his mother, checks on his mother, supports his mother, appreciates his mother. But he does not allow his mother to run his life. He makes his own decisions. He establishes boundaries. He protects his relationship. He understands that loving one woman does not require sacrificing another. He knows how to say, "I love you, Mom, but this decision belongs to us. I appreciate your opinion, but we've already decided. I won't allow anyone to disrespect my partner." That's emotional maturity. That's leadership. That's adulthood. If you are constantly fighting for a position you should already have, pay attention. If you're constantly being overlooked, pay attention. If another person's opinion always outweighs yours, pay attention. If you feel like a third wheel in your own relationship, pay attention. Because healthy relationships don't require competition. Healthy relationships require clarity. And clarity says this: a man can love his mother deeply, without making her the center of every decision. A man can honor his mother without allowing her to control his future. A man can respect his mother without sacrificing his partner. And if he refuses to make that distinction, you will spend years trying to win a battle that was never yours to fight. Because the issue was never between you and his mother. The issue was always whether he was willing to become his own man. If this message spoke to you, don't ignore the warning signs. You cannot build a healthy future with someone who refuses to establish healthy boundaries. Subscribe to TAM'S mini motivational moment for more bold, direct conversations about relationships, self-worth, and choosing yourself before it's too late. Remember, never compete for a position that should already belong to you.